Have you ever thought about becoming a full-time artist? I'm currently on a journey to go from part-time to full-time as an artist, designer and illustrator. That's what this whole channel is about. As part of the journey, I'll be looking at other artists talking about their experiences. In this case, Wesley Gardner is talking about some pretty shocking revelations regarding earnings, money, how much you can expect to make as an artist in the modern age. So let's watch his video and see what we think.
What's up, gang? It's Wes. So this one's gonna be a rough one. Normally we make sure that this channel stays very positive, very uplifting, and I promise the video will get there, but we have to kind of go through the muck for a second. Now, I always talk about art programs and brushes and kind of the thrill of the chase of getting clients and business acumen and things like that. But there's also another side of business when it doesn't actually work out the way you intend. So this video...
Okay, so this is quite a long video. It's about 40 something minutes. I'm going to fast forward bits just to get to the main point, because that's what we're sort of here for. But obviously, it's a truth about being a full-time artist. This is talking about the downsides of it, and I think it's worth pointing these out. I'm always an advocate for it at my own expense, because like he said, people want to sort of hear the positive messages and it makes people feel good, and that's what we're here for. We don't want to live in a world of hell and suffering and just knowing that nothing's going to work and there's no hope. That doesn't get us through life. However, it's worth spending time, even if it's people like this guy in this video or me bringing this video out a second time, just to say that, yeah, there's another side to this worth considering. And if it's if it's something that most people are going to have to traverse through, it's like going on a hike in the mountains. Sometimes you want to know that it's a dangerous mountain, whereby it's probably worth bringing a rope with you, because if you get stuck, that rope might be the thing between surviving and not. And only a fool doesn't listen to advice from people who have sort of been there, done it, have experience doing what they do. This guy, as far as I know, is he's in the industry, he's doing his thing, and he's willing to share some truths, and I think that's worth something.
Video is going to be a little more just us talking. So in my book, Draw and Paint Better with Krita, I talk about this idea that I would like to be your guardian angel, your art guardian angel. There's always someone in your corner kind of rooting for you, letting you know that you can do it, put your mind to it, and then you're gonna win. You're gonna win. But in this video, I come to you, hat in hand, tail between the legs, however you want to metaphorize it, to talk about when you don't win and the kind of shocking reality of what it means to be a freelance artist in 2025. Well, really 2024, because I have tax documents. So I'm not just going to give you hyperbole. I'm not going to give you anecdotal evidence. I'm going to give you numbers, like to the penny, my gross income for the entire year, so you can make your own choice if becoming a freelance illustrator and a freelance visual artist might be for you. Because looking at the numbers, becoming full-time might be one of the biggest mistakes of my entire life. Buckle up, cowboy. Let's get to it.
Okay, so we know what we're in for now. We've got the honest discussion about money, and I don't think this is going to be a video where it's like, oh dear, I only made $2 billion last week. Oh, I made $3 billion the week before. Woe is me. I think it's going to be, I can't survive doing this. Help. So it's worth, again, getting some info about this sort of thing to know the sort of rates that you can get, and hopefully he's going to give some context to that as well.
All right, so yeah, let's talk about this. There's a lot to unpack here, and we will get to the hard numbers pretty quickly.
I just need to preface something real quick. I need to preface why I'm actually doing this, okay, and why I'm being more kind of forthright with the actual money involved. Normally, it's kind of a tacky thing, at least to me, whenever people are talking about, here's how much money I made and stuff. But after a lot of kind of soul searching and stuff, I have to come to the realization that I can no longer be full-time as a freelance illustrator. Now we're going to talk about that, but I wanted to set the stage and tell you that, you know, at the very beginning of the video, we put that Jean-Luc Picard quote on there. I feel like I've done a lot of things right. And I want to put those and categorically kind of summarize those right here.
So people can't leave the comment, well, you should have done this, you should have done that. I'm going to list the stuff I have accomplished, okay? And this is somebody who is a professional. I continue to get work. I'm working on stuff right now, in fact. But it doesn't matter, okay? So I have the stuff here. I might read it, but okay. So
I have worked for Star Wars, Warhammer 40,000, Riot Games, been featured in Imagine FX. I have a best-selling published book about art, the Krita book we talked about earlier. It's, in fact, one of the best-selling art books Pact has ever put out. I get royalties every quarter for it. It still sells, and I get those weekly emails. In fact, they email me probably 4 or 5 times a month wanting me to write a sequel to it. So it's popular enough that they are requesting me back. Do you know what I mean? So we'll say best-selling, you know, author for Pact. I'm a top 100 seller on ArtStation. So out of the thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people selling brushes and all that stuff, I'm a top 100 seller. And that's just over this past year. A few years before, I was in the top 15 sellers. We're going to talk about why that changed in a later part of this video. But just know that, yeah, I'm still a top 100 seller. I still sell the courses and the brushes and all that just on ArtStation. I also have a Gumroad. I have a cube brush, Mark Burnett's, you know, his store. Love that guy. So have my stuff on his store, make sales there. Let's see, Flip Normals is another great one. I also do, I'm on About CG, which is over in China. I'm kind of locked into that contract there. So that's where my stuff in China sells there as well. So this is international sales. I get sales from all kinds of places, right? I have a Patreon, over 40 people, usually average a month. Sometimes they drop and stuff like that, but usually you have about 40 patrons a month, right? And we just hit 10,000 subscribers here on YouTube. So did you know this? Only, let me get this right, 90% of all active channels, active means you have to at least upload once a month. That's the criteria. 90% of all YouTube channels that are active never make it to 10,000 subscribers. We did. We are in the top 10% legitimately in the world on YouTube. Less than 6% of all active channels ever get monetized. I've been monetized for about 2.5 years now. We've passed that ship, okay? So, quote unquote, on paper, successful YouTube channel, okay?
So yeah, okay, in his mind, and in my mind, this guy is legit, okay? He knows what he's doing. He's not just, I want to be a professional one day. Maybe one day I'll have a client like Star Wars or Warhammer 40,000. Maybe I'll win an art award. It's like, this guy's out there killing it. He's doing really well. He's, you know, it's like, yep, okay. Like his CV, his resume, compared to most average people, I think is impressive. I mean, like the art space is so competitive that for anyone to get a job, a big job, and actually sustain a career in that field is just ridiculous. Like even it's someone that, you know, that maybe they've been working as an Amazon warehouse employee for the last 10 years or 20 years, or not that they probably had much of a warehouse presence 20 years ago, but still, like, you know, that's something to be proud of, but more so far in the fact that you've sustained a career with a company that's shit. But I mean, this is something whereby the work is probably quite enjoyable to actually create artwork. I'm sure this guy fucking loves his job, but maybe not, because I know there are people like myself and others who don't actually enjoy the process of creating art, and perhaps like me, they just enjoy the finished result, or they, you know, they like it for other reasons. But yeah, so the enjoyment's there, and he's obviously managed, at least up until this point, as far as we know, to make money. So it's like, okay, well, how have things changed? And this guy's got a lot of credibility here, and I'm very much the same. You know, I could post up an on-paper CV that's very similar. other than the YouTube, obviously, where I know that this video is probably going to get about 12 views. But other than that, you know, I could still say that, oh, you know, I've got a social media following of like over 50,000 followers across other social media platforms. Or I could say, oh yeah, I've published books, I've had bestsellers, all that kind of stuff. And I know that most of, I don't know, I guess people I know that sort of dabble with art, they've got a dream maybe to become an artist. I mean, my dream is to go from part-time to full-time, but yeah, I don't think that they have much in the way of accolades other than, you know, they've managed to get their first few commissions and have sold some products, and which is really fucking good. But yeah, it's hard to have a really professional, well-polished CV, and it's no wonder that this guy's in the top 10% therefore for his YouTube, because he's obviously got some credibility and some sort of social proof behind him. So
hustling, just working, getting these odds and end jobs, doing commissions, things like that. Mentoring kind of took a backseat a little bit, but I'm thinking about bringing that up for this year. But just know, I'm trying to do the thing that everybody tells you to do, which is diversify. Never rely on one place to get all your funding from, right? And it's smart business. Reach out, make those network connections, do what you can. Okay, so we have that classified. So the real thing, I got all the tax returns, I crunched numbers. This is the amount, gross, total. So before taxes, this is the top of the money before you pay about 24% in freelancer tax, which is outrageous. But gross, this is from every single income source.
So this is from getting the cover, getting the spot illustrations in these books, selling the book, the royalties on my book, YouTube revenue, so AdSense revenue, any partnerships with companies that I did, yeah, any illustration work that I did, any brushes I sold on any of the platforms.
This is legitimately every single penny that I got for the year, gross. Okay.
okay, should we take bets? Should we take predictions? How much do you think this guy made over the course of a year, given his sort of status and his, you know, work? Let's just say he works pretty hard. Let's just say at least sort of 30, 40, 50 hours a week doing a job as a professional illustrator, you know, with clients that have, you know, a high bar to entry, you know, like Star Wars and Warhammer. You can't be a bad artist to do stuff like that. And obviously they're big, huge, multi-billion-dollar clients, really. You know, the amount of money that they make is actually quite ridiculous. I've got a feeling he's going to say something like $20,000 or something like that, just because being an artist myself, going into 2025, or he's talking about his receipts from 2024, I've seen my sales go woo, you know, like it's not a good time. But what do you think?
So the grand total is
$8,500. That's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
$8,465.58.
I mean, if you think, like, after expenses,
that
like,
is,
I mean, on that amount, I'm sure you're not really taxed anything. I'm not really sure how American tax system works, but there's certain thresholds in the UK whereby if you earn under, I think it's £12,500, you don't pay any tax. You can still pay national insurance, which is basically payments towards hospital care and stuff like that. Even though we have a free hospital care, we still, as sort of, it's a different type of tax as taxpayers. We have to contribute towards that in addition to paying for taxes just for everything else. But that is crazy.
without a doubt, the hardest I've ever worked for the least amount of money that I've ever made.
Yeah, no doubt.
Now, we have a mortgage. I have 3 beautiful children. I cannot live off of, and they cannot live off of $8,465 a year.
No, it's impossible.
It's not going to happen. Can't happen. I'm happily married. The burden has been on my wife. It's been on me. It can't happen. It's unacceptable. Here's the kicker. I think I know a few reasons of why this happened, but this is my 5th year as a pro. This is by far the least amount of money I've made, with more, fires in the oven or whatever, fires in the fireplace, whatever that saying is. I'm spinning more plates now at a higher level than I ever have before, and I've made less than half what I made last year. In fact, I'll give you a funny one. 2024 tax season, that's whenever I had my job for Star Wars, right? I made more on the Star Wars job by nearly triple for 6 weeks of work what I made all of last year for one job, right?
Okay, so he obviously still got some money from the big high paying clients, and obviously if you can get lots of 6-week jobs, then it might work out. But yeah, it just goes to show that all these companies like YouTube that pay you a little ad revenue, or some sort of affiliate, like if you send a few people to Amazon or through some other Google affiliate scheme, or if you have a few Patreon subscribers, or a few people buy your brushes from Gumroad or something, or in his case being one of the top art station, which is like selling his probably brushes, tutorials, art prints. I don't know what he sells, but that stuff obviously just doesn't pay. People would say, oh, there's so many opportunities for artists now. It's like, well, the opportunity is really for businesses to exploit artists. That's really, I think, what's going on. I mean, yeah, there is something there that wasn't before, an easy opportunity, easy access opportunity, but it's literally open up to everyone. You don't need to be good enough to create, I don't know, concept art for Star Wars to do well on these platforms, when you could just AI prompt your way to success, if that's the thing. It's, no one really cares about you unless you're a person that has to make phone calls and talk and discuss with an art director how things are necessarily going. So the kind of freelance passive aspect of it, building a business, it is tough. And I think AI is one thing. This kind of recent hustle culture, entrepreneurial thing that's just kind of seems to have exploded in the last sort of 5 years, because you do have the counter argument to this, the success stories where people say, oh, I made, $50,000 last week. Here's how you can do it too. Of course, the video is just another way of them monetizing the idea of success, and, things that sell well are the idea of, making lots of money, or being more attractive to the opposite sex, or getting a partner and losing weight. And, there's a few things that just will always sell, how to be fit and ripped and successful and rich, and, get the partner of your dreams and have all this, career success or whatever. If you advertise that fact that you can do it, whether or not it's true, it doesn't matter. Just the hope that you could do it is enough to kind of make money off of people's dreams effectively. Whereas, trying to build something tangible, trying to create something of value from the ground up is actually really difficult. And it, unfortunately, just doesn't really sort of seem to pay, unfortunately.
When I left my full-time job in 2019, the only reason I left my full-time job, and this is one with health benefits, I could have retired easily there. They paid for everything. I had to follow the dream. I had to follow it. I had to chase it. The iron was hot because I was making more money as an artist than I was at my gig. The next year, I also made more than I did at my previous gig. And then around 2021, something started happening. And we'll get to it. I think you might know what I'm going to talk about. I don't think it's the only reason, but I think it's definitely one. Okay? But like I said, we'll get to that. So each and every year, the first 2 years were about the same, making almost 40,000. Then it dropped to about 31. Then it dropped.
I would just say at this point, it's funny because $40,000 is okay, isn't it? Given the fact of what it costs to live in the West, in America, I'm assuming this guy's from, 40k is not great money. It's just weird. I know a lot of people that work in construction and building. You know, they started off as labourers, basically shifting a hod of bricks from one building part of a building site to another, and now they might be sort of, well, doing more of the same, but maybe a little bit more skilled, just through the fact that over the 3 years of them labouring, they now know how to put up a brick wall, you know, or they know how some sort of basic carpentry or stuff like that. Maybe they kind of specialised and went more into specifically into like plumbing or electrics or whatever. These were people that I knew at like school or whatever that weren't very academically bright. They were the naughty kids. They weren't very disciplined. They weren't very smart. They messed around at school. They just didn't do their homework. And if you're a kid that does do their homework, you know, in spite of the fact that you'd love to just be, you know, going out to the park with your friends or, you know, playing PlayStation or whatever it is, it's like, it's hard. It is, you know, you kind of have a little bit of resentment for the kids that just messed about and did nothing, and now they are the ones who are really successful because, you know, they couldn't get the job as, you know, in those kind of fields that maybe other people would want to do, you know, like be an actor or an artist or a writer or something like that. Or just, you know, the kind of what you would normally consider the cushy office job where you just, you know, enter a few bits on a spreadsheet and then kind of sit back and let the money roll in type thing. And now it seems like this weird inversion where those kids at school who just didn't apply themselves are now making probably $150,000 equivalent basically, whereas this guy feels like, right, I can make more money being a freelance artist, making $40,000 than my previous gig. I'm assuming that was a non-art related job. It's just, it is very difficult, I think, for a lot of people to make sense of it, because it's an inversion of what you were taught or what you would expect. And you can kind of rationalize it a little bit. You could say, okay, well, you know, with the creative fields, you know, there's a lot of people that would love to be writers. You know, they would love to be the next J.K. Rowling and become a multi-millionaire that just gets to write fun little stories and, you know, just basically, you know, transcribe just the crazy fantasies of their mind and make money for it. Same with artists, or, you know, if you're a musician or an actor, it's like this is stuff like you want to learn to play guitar because it's fun to play guitar. I mean, it's a bit unfair almost that you should make money from it, you know. So therefore, yeah, you shouldn't necessarily make a lot of money before it because it's fun. But I don't know, there's a lot of jobs as well, even working on a building site. You know, I know people that are builders, carpenters or whatever. They absolutely love their job. You know, they say, oh, I can't believe how much I love my job. Again, people that perhaps didn't apply themselves or weren't academically bright. And not everyone is suited for academics, and that's fine. I'm not denigrating those types of people. But, you know, you're set up in life, in school, you know, with a system in place, with a set of objectives and goals. The idea is to score high on your maths exam, to score high on your history or geography exam, or even your PE, you know, and sports exams or whatever. The idea that there's this fundamental system in place which is supposed to prepare you for the world, and you can measure your progress by your grades. You know, you think, okay, well, I'll follow the system that is there in front of me and try and do well. And this guy, you know, like me, you know, I did well at art. I did my GCSEs in UK secondary school, and, you know, I got my A-star GCSE with my art and my A in graphic design. And then I thought, okay, let's do an A-level. So I got my A from the A-level, and I did my art and design GMVQ, and I smashed that. And then I went to uni, and I, you know, graduated top of my class, all this kind of stuff. And you think if you do all of this stuff and you smash it out of the park and you devote yourself and you're committed, then yes, you too can not only have a job in the industry that you've trained for, that was presented before you in front of you, but you're probably, or it seems like you should be doing better than the people who just, I don't know, hung out at the back of the school by the bike sheds smoking and, I don't know, trying to sniff glue or whatever. But no, those are the people who us artists now, comparatively in a sort of financial sense, have to kind of look up to, I suppose. And it can be quite stressful, I suppose, if at the end of the day, like this guy, he's got his kids, he's got his mortgage to deal with. You know, we all have life stuff. We all need money, whether we get it through art or we get it through other means. And it's just frustrating when we would love to give our kids a better life. And I'm not saying spoil, but I'm just saying like be able to afford food that isn't like, you know, sort of reprocessed machine-made chicken nuggets that just have poor nutritional value. But like this guy, if he's trying to get by on his $8,500, he can't afford that. He can't give his kids nutritional food. And I'm not saying you should spoil your kids, but if a kid goes to school and you're dressed in rags, the other kids are going to give that kid a hard time. It's just how school works. It's not fair, it's not right, it's reality. You know, it's all status and stuff, especially when you're sort of like from the age of sort of 10 and up, perhaps. And, you know, adversity and difficulties can build character, but equally it can just give you a harder time. You know, if you had to go to work and do a job, and your job was to, I don't know, fill up a bucket of water and then bring that water to a sink and then drain it away and then rinse and repeat, and you know, that's perhaps not a great job, but imagine you also just had someone, you know, like a manager or a boss just bullying you throughout the whole time. It's like, this is not fun as it is, but it's being made harder than it should be. And you would prefer to not have to deal with that extra shit on top. It's like, there's always adversity in everything. You know, it's hard enough when you're dealing with like a health issue, you know, you've got cancer or something, but when you also, I don't know, just can't afford the medical bills, or you can't afford, you know, like I say, food, or you're so stressed that you can't actually get a good night's sleep because you've got all these other problems in your sort of, I don't know, sort of, you know, with your sort of social life or your finances or whatever it is. It's like, you just want to minimize problems, really. And I think it can be quite difficult when, just comparatively, you seem to be struggling so much despite having perhaps, like this guy says, worked harder than he's ever worked. And now he's finding himself in a worse position than ever. Like, it doesn't compute in the brain. It's like, why is this happening? I shouldn't have this. I mean, I don't know what this guy is making of this. Obviously, he's frustrated enough to sort of talk about it on a video, knowing full well that this isn't what people want to hear. This is probably going to make people unsubscribe, because if his whole shtick, kind of like mine, is basically to create an art channel, you know, you're going to want to get artists on board, him specifically, since he's creating brushes and artistic resources and books for artists to buy to, you know, help them on their artistic journey. You know, he's now basically saying to his own customer base, you know, you can buy my stuff, but it ain't going to help you. So, I give this guy a lot of credit for for coming out and saying what he's saying, really.
So that was your 3. Your 4, we're talking 22, 23. Then we're here. It's plummeting fast. This is crisis. You have to rip the cord, you know, all hands on deck, red alert, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, okay. I'll just quickly add as well that I've got exactly the same story so far as my art prints and t-shirt sales and things like that go. 2020, great. 2021, it's okay. Then 2022, you start to see this like downward curve where it's just like, oh, okay, things are not good. You know, 2020, what would I say, 2022, 2023, things have, you know, success has halved, you know, or the profits have halved. This is not good. And then, you get into 2023, 2024, and then it's like, okay, those have now halved or third or quartered from the halfway point they were the year before. And yeah, you kind of get this sort of trajectory where it's like, oh, things are kind of going up, 2020, and then certain things happen, and then they just start declining, and then a steep boom down to just nothingness. And if this was the economy, there would be riots in the streets, but obviously it's just one individual talking about his one problem. But this is indicative of just the whole illustration freelance art industry, and I know because this guy's got some pedigree. I've got a similar sort of resume of accolades, and I'm facing it, even though I'm doing slightly different things.
And just judging by these first few months of here and what I'm seeing on social media and seeing other companies that I used to work with taking some very weird pivots, it's going to be a worse year this year. Even with more stuff happening, even with 10K YouTube, even with partnerships and, sponsored content, this is going to be an even worse year. So literally, once this spring is kind of done, we're getting, the kids in daycare. Because right now, I'm daddy daycare. I wake up when the kids wake up. And then I start my job when the kids go to bed. So my hours are from about 10 p.m. to about 4 a.m. And then I wake up 7:30. And this is 5 days a week. And then, thankfully family gets to do stuff on the weekend. So I might be able to sleep in. It's not feasible. I think I did the math. And if I said I worked like 35 hours a week or, I work way more than that. But let's just say 35 hours a week. It was something like $4.80 something cents, which is $3 less. It's almost half of what the federal minimum wage is for a full-time gig. Full-time gig minimum wage is still $7.25. I wasn't even bringing $7.25, and this is no insurance. This is no retirement, no benefits, no savings to put. Like, what savings? Hell, that this whole tax season is going to be nuts because like I barely made money. Like that's so far beyond the poverty line, like below it. It doesn't make any sense. So I've been sitting on this for a while, and this video, I've put out like 3 or 4 videos since knowing I was going to make this video. So this video might be one of those things that it's going to be eye-opening, but it also might end my career because I'm going to throw a little bit of shade. But a lot of it's on me, and I'm going to explain that as well. Because if I'm going to be your art guardian angel, if I'm going to be that person for you, I got to tell you the bad stuff too. I have to. It's not all sunshine and rainbows and chase your dreams and your passions. Well, if you just look to the stars, that'll take you to... Forget all that. Let's talk about this. Right now is a dreadful time to be a freelance anything, really, but especially an illustrator. But I know copy editors, I know comic book artists, I know production assistants, I know actors, and these actors are like, they're on Broadway, and they're doing like, it's tough for everybody, right? But especially the visual artists, graphic designers. And by the way, all the rates that I charge, I'm not undercutting myself. I'm using industry standard rates that I'm getting from like the Graphic Design Illustration Association. Illustrators, being part of, if I were to like join their union, I just can't afford it. I literally can't afford it. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing $20 commissions. Like, those days are over. I don't do those anymore. But it's a lot to think about. It's a lot to kind of digest.
I mean, all I can say is I totally feel this guy's pain. Isn't it ridiculous? Isn't it ridiculous how you just work your complete butt off to get really good at something? Like I say, that you were led to believe there was a career in. He's making $40,000 a year, starting out on his journey to be a freelancer. And I suppose at that point he thought, okay, I'm making more money here. Let me now see how I can increase the earning potential so I can actually survive. Because ultimately this is what it's about. To be a professional, you have to make money. It's what it all comes down to. For most people, it's just trying to get good enough to become a professional, and that is what most, for example, YouTube art content is. How can I how can I draw better anatomy? How can I understand perspective or color theory? Or, you know, how can I just draw something, draw a dog, draw a hand, draw an eye, you know? And there's just so much how-to content on the actual skill acquisition itself. That's what most of it is. And that's fine, because most people don't want to become professionals. But there is a certain amount of people who, you know, if the opportunity was there for everyone, they would probably say, you know what, I just wanted to learn how to draw, you know, cartoon characters, or, you know, like anime portraits, and I now am really good at this, and I would love it if I could actually make a career in this. And if there was an opportunity for that, instead of them perhaps doing a job which they might not like quite so much. I mean, they might equally like, you know, going out to, I don't know, do hairdressing, or, like I say, work on a building site, or work in an office. It's like, you might like that. You might like the social aspect of going out and doing that, because that's another thing with the freelance endeavours. You have to, the main thing, other than money being an issue, is dealing with the solitude and loneliness. And if you're quite an extrovert person, it's going to destroy you. You know, you have to be someone that is happy to just be on your own for several hours every day. Perhaps, you know, being lucky if you can just make a phone call or have a quick 10-minute video call with someone, because that's just how it is. So there's a lot of hardships that come with the illustration thing as well. Big hardships, you know, as human beings, we kind of need social contact, otherwise we basically die. So it's not necessarily all easy, even if you do acquire the skills to potentially do it, and even if you do have the opportunity to have a career in this thing. But yeah, what do you do if you know, you've made all the sacrifices? You're working, you know, 10 times harder than all your friends or people that you know who, you know, who aren't making certain sacrifices, yet they're still doing better than you. You can't process it in your mind. And I can tell this guy's like, oh, this is just ridiculous. This isn't how it's supposed to be. You know, and I'm trying to drum home that point of just how amazing the state of affairs is. It really is amazing. Like, people wouldn't understand. I mean, the amount of people, for me personally, that will say to me, oh wow, I wish I could draw like you. And I mean, I'm not even like a top tier AAA artist. You know, I don't think I could get a job working for Star Wars or Warhammer 40k. I mean, I've got other clients, you know, big name clients who I've worked for as well, doing slightly different stuff. But and I wouldn't necessarily say that there's no way I could work for these companies, but you know, it'd be, for me to produce the same level of work, I'd probably have to work 10 times harder. You know, I'd have to, you know, my natural ability perhaps isn't there, so I'd have to make up the time in just grind in order to sort of get to the same level or whatever. But yeah, just to be in a position where nothing's working out, nothing's paying off, people around you are looking at what you're doing. It's like, wow, like, you know, there's people whereby they probably think, oh, I kind of do the bare minimum. You know, I just, you know, in my job, I'm a driver and I drive around and I pick up a few boxes, and then I take these boxes to another warehouse, and then I pick up some other boxes and take it there, and you know, I earn, you know, $80,000 equivalent a year. And they probably kind of feel like, you know, it's a lazy job, I'm not very good at it. At least a couple of drivers I've spoke to that do like long haul driving, they're like, it's easy work. You know, it has its problems, obviously, you know, lots of concentration, long hours away from family, stuff like that. But again, same as being an artist, when you're stuck in a room away from society, when you're working freelance on your own, you know, you have your own problems with isolation and stuff. But yeah, it's just, they themselves think, you know what, maybe I should start working harder and trying to, you know, open up my own business, open up my own haulage company and logistics company. And, you know, there's so much more money to be made, but, you know I'm the sort of lazy person that can only make 80,000 a year. And then in comparison, you've got an artist guy like this who's working his butt off in an industry whereby the lorry driver comparison, and lorry driver's going to hate me for saying this, luckily, like I say, small channel, most people that have watched this aren't lorry drivers or know anyone that is, so it doesn't really matter. And I don't even dislike lorry drivers. In there, most that I've met have been pretty cool people. But that's beside the point. The point is that this guy's working his arse off, and if he was the equivalent of the lorry driver that wanted to start his own logistic business, he'd probably be on about $1 million a year, you know, just in the amount of effort and output that's coming out. But because it's the art and design industry, you know, there's obviously no correlation between the amount of time and effort you put into a thing and the amount of monetary gain and financial reward you get out. And it must be pretty difficult. I mean, I'm saying it must be pretty difficult for him just because I empathise, because I know, you know, I don't even need to empathise. I know exactly what he's talking about because I'm on a journey to become a full-timer. And the reason I'm not a full-timer is because I don't make enough money with the artistic endeavours I do get. And even though I kind of initially thought he'd probably say, oh, I only made like $20,000, and 8.5 is even worse than I would ever have thought. It's like, even then, it doesn't, in a way, really shock me because, yeah, I'm dealing with exactly the same thing, you know. I've got people who go to work and, you know, they say to me, oh, you know, I wish I could do the things you do, Ben. I wish I could win the awards that you win. I wish I, you know, had some kind of clout or kudos or had the sort of, you know, could land a client like you could land. But oh well, I guess I'll just have to go back to my 80,000, you know, a year lorry driving job, and maybe one day I'll be as good as you. And I'm like, whoa, don't put yourself down. You're making like 20 times more than I earn. Like, you know, we live in a world where on paper things can look amazing, and they are amazing, and you know, you deserve to feel proud of your accomplishments. You know, if you went to university and you went down the academic route and you worked hard and you graduated, that's an achievement worth celebrating. And if you graduated top of your class and, you know, you put in the work hours and the effort, yeah, be proud of that. But it can completely destroy someone's life if they've done that, they worked their arse off, and now they're seeing no gain from it. And on, you know, and from a sort of life point of thing, you know, when you've got 3 kids and a mortgage and they're relying on you and they're putting pressures on you and you feel a ton of pressure on yourself, I think this is probably more of a man thing to provide, you know, financially, it can completely destroy your life. And I think this is kind of what this guy's talking about, although I'm sure towards the end he's going to put a positive spin on the whole thing.
I'm going to take a small little snippet break. I have some water here. A small little break. We'll do the little logo thing, and then I'll come back and I'll talk about some of the successes and some of the failures. So, like, what do I think? Why do I think it was such a drastic change?
Okay, so maybe I'll save this for a part 2 or something. But yeah, I think we got to the hard truth, and I think it's, for some people, going to be quite eye-opening. And you know, I'm sure if I was the sort of person that had, well, this guy has like 10,000 YouTube followers, it wouldn't be surprising to me if, for me sharing even my commentary of this guy's journey, that I would now lose 1,000 or half of my YouTube subscribers. Not because I've done anything wrong. In fact, I've done something right. I've said something that needs to be said, you know, but it's not what people want to hear about. You know, it's like, you know, the scandals that you hear about where, you know, thousands, tens of thousands of, you know, kids are being abused and their families are kind of implicit in it because it's too shameful to admit, and then the whistleblowers kind of get shut down and no one wants to admit, you know, the horrors that have been happening because just human beings prefer to just live in a fantasy world where they can just cover their ears and shut their eyes and go blah, 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 not listening. That's how most people seem to want to be, but I think it's also worth acknowledging the hardships, the horrors. Not I'm necessarily saying that being an artist is as bad as being an abused kid, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of negative stuff that goes wrong in the world, and actually I think if we acknowledge it, then we can start figuring out how to fix it rather than just burying it under the carpet, pretending it doesn't exist. Or, you know, some people will listen to this video. There might even be 1 or 2 people that listen to my commentary of it and think, okay, I really love art. I was made to be an artist. I've got that kind of artistic mind, but I've learned that to be a freelance artist, you know, to be a concept artist, an illustrator, maybe someone who's designing artistic products like t-shirts, art prints or whatever, is very, very unrealistic for me to have a job in that, to have a career in that. So if you are going to spend, you know, 20,000 hours getting, you know, your art skills up to a point where you could have a career in it, you then have to think, well, is it going to be worth doing it? And is it even worth getting your art skills up to that level? You know, maybe art for you should just be a fun little endeavour to explore your own ideas, or to try and get skillful at something with no expectation of it ever leading to a career. So yeah, interesting stuff. I'd be interested to know what other people think of it, if they have these sort of experiences, have shared this, or whether they thought about maybe having a career in art and design, and maybe this has put them off, or maybe they're thinking, you know, this is all this is all just shit. I don't believe it's true. Yeah, it may not have worked for him, but it'll work for me. I'm going to be the outlier. I'm going to show them, and yeah, maybe you will, and good luck to you if you do, because there are genuinely people who are killing it still, even within the art space. Like, because I know, because those are the videos that tend to be successful on YouTube, the ones where you can succeed, show people how you've succeeded, and give other people the hope that they too can do it. People love that stuff, and they therefore will be the videos that rise to the top, that other artists and people considering art, you know, like I say, writing, music, other creative arts types, careers, they will gravitate towards that, because it's like, oh, good, confirmation bias of my dream coming true. Let me click that, let me like that, let me comment on that. Thanks for the video, thanks for the inspiration. You know, your positive message has made me feel confident that I too can do it. And people are desperate for that confidence. You know, everyone's just low in confidence. You know, whether they, you know, it's about the way they look, or the amount of money they have, or the confidence that they can achieve something, you know, and rightly so, because things worth achieving in life aren't easy. But yeah, get the balance, and still don't give up. Like I'm still in some way going to try making it out, you know, into being a full-time artist, regardless, at least for now. This time next year, I don't know how things are going to be, but right now, I'm going to try it. So for anyone else in that position, let's not quite just give up because someone has posted a doom and gloom, you know, a message on the internet. But let's use that as a sort of contention, a point to actually consider and be concerned about, and to think, is there a way around it? Maybe there isn't, maybe there is. But, you know, we'll see how it goes.